Another Tuesday, another Compliance Tuesday. Today we are going to talk about something that's very important for all of us, PPWR, packaging and packaging waste regulation. It's not entirely new. It's coming from a existing kind of legislation that has been in place for a long time. And even before Europe, most of the national member states already had legislation on packaging. Reduction of the packaging footprint was always relevant. It's very, I would say in 30 years of working in product compliance, I would say this is really different. It's not just another compliance update. It might look the same because it's like packaging and we've been talking about packaging, but this is touching everybody. We have to remember that we are now here in the scope of non-food product compliance, but packaging is everywhere, and the regulation is also intended for packaging for food and feed. It's even going to regulate disposables. So packaging is a broad topic, and that makes some of the rumors or noise in the market coming from, for example, food processing brands very relevant, because if you are Mars or Unilever or any other company producing food at scale, you have a really, really big challenge. But the challenge for us in the non-food is not less. Just want to go back like 2 weeks ago, I wrote a post on LinkedIn. Tomatoes are not vegetables. That seems like an odd title, but it's trivial, but it is not, because for years we have looked at packaging and said, oh, it's just cost and logistics and artwork, but it is far more than that. If you call it waste, then probably you look at it as waste in your entire operation. It's no longer a supporting element. It now becomes a regulated product layer. So today we're going to connect this kind of misclassification to today's operational reality. The whole reasoning behind the packaging and packaging waste regulations comes from the fact that 50% of the single-use carton that we have is related to packaging. Look at myself, I'm a fan of e-commerce. We expect that the total number of elements, packaging units will double from 2023 to 2030. But the goal is to reduce the use of virgin material to 50% of 2023, which is then, if we double the number of units to 2030, would be 25%. So that's a real challenge. We need to reduce the volume of the material that we use. We need to use it very smart, and we need to use it in such a way that it doesn't become a single time use, but that we actually can reuse it as well. So recyclability is one, but also minimize the quantities that we use, but also minimize the volume. It doesn't do anybody good to deliver a SD card in a large box with an electrical fan. It mainly means that we have an EV car transporting air. That cannot be the case. So the agenda is set not just by Europe. It's a general, can say Europe and Green Deal. It's a general agenda that we have set in the world. So this agenda won't go away. It affects all of us when we go home and are not at work and are a consumer. But this also affects the businesses. The scope has extended from consumer packaging to transportation packaging, and even e-commerce packaging has had its own classification. In the end, the e-commerce packaging looks like a transportation packaging, but it ends up at my house and I need to dispose it. So it's like hybrid. A lot of things going on. New reality. Where are we now? Well, we had our proposal phase discussions, etc., and then in 2025, when all was published, and we started to read it, and we thought, okay, yeah, it's going to hit some of the organizations, but still time, and still time, and still time. But actually, we're running out of time. August 12, 2026, a couple of months away from today, and then there's the obligation for a declaration of conformity on packaging. This is actually a way where an administration like Brussels in this case, the EU is putting the pressure on the supply chain. If they feel things are becoming very, very important, they add a declaration of conformity layer to it. They add a signature to it. The management now need to sign that they actually, the company has done an effort to ensure compliance. And this signature is a other layer. If management signs declaration of conformity, but there's no budget, there's no staff, that means that this is fraud and forgery. So it's a different kind of way to put the pressure on the supply chain. There need to be a technical file for packaging. There need to be a risk assessment to be done. So it's definitely more work. You can say packaging is a product. Yeah, you can say that. Yeah. So slowly companies start to realize that the packaging supply chain is very, very complicated. And in order to take you on that journey a little bit, I would like you to join me for a few slides in a Mentimeter, just because I like to know where you are standing today. So it's not very complex. It's just a few questions that I would like to ask you. It's anonymous. We only see how many people are answering, not who has answered. The results will be part of the slide deck. The slide deck will be part of the handout, and this will also become available for all of you very, very quickly. Yeah. Okay, we are with 177 participants, and I know many of you are looking with multiple people at one screen. Thank you all for joining this Compliance Tuesday. It's really encouraging. Thank you very much. We put a lot of effort in it, and I know you guys also put a lot of effort in it. So it's great to meet here on this occasion. Well, with 100 plus people joining the Mentimeter, I think we have a very relevant audience. Looking at PPWR and giving you a little bit feedback on the roadmap that I showed you, how confident are you that you are ready for PPWR? With this kind of audience, the best guess would be somewhere in the middle. Well, with 3 months to go, one could say it should actually be a little bit more to the right. But the reality probably is that you think you are in the middle, but what we have seen so far is that it's actually a bit more to the left. This PPWR, the new one, but also the old one, has two parts. It has a compliance part. The packaging need to be compliant in order to be placed on the market. And compliant means it can be recycled. The other part is what they call the extended producer responsibility part. That means those entities that are involved in making the products available to the market, they are the only ones that know how many units have been placed in a member state on the market in a certain period. In the Netherlands in a year, in Germany in a year. And they need to pay for the recycling. In order to be paying for recycling, you need APR data. You need to know what is the weight, the total weight of the carton, total weight of the paper, total weight of the certain plastics. And you have been collecting that APR data for the last years. There's a common misunderstanding, and I want to clarify that during this Compliance Tuesday, that this APR data actually can be used with a reverse logic to make a packaging file under the new PPWR and make a risk assessment. Trust me, if that would have been possible, we would have been doing that, because that would mean printing money. Yeah, it's really not like that. It's the other way around. When you're making a file for packaging and you do a proper risk assessment, you also are collecting EPR data, and that's very relevant. I'm happy to see that most of you agree with me. You are dealing with making packaging files in the nearby future. And you're most likely to connect with your first tier, the ones that supply you with the product for that. And later I will show you that although this is a logic first step, that this brings several hurdles because most likely the company that makes the product is not making the packaging. And we have taken that very much into consideration when we design the solution. Actually, not just for this, also for other parts that become part of a product file or a packaging file. Supply chain collaboration beyond first tier has always been on our focus, but it's never been more critical than now looking at the packaging and packaging waste regulation. If you just describe in a few words what you think is the biggest rock when you look at regarding PPR implementation at your end. I'm not going to deep dive on every of these, but maybe respond on that when I share the presentation with you guys. In many cases, we spoke with entities from the market, and they say, actually, when you look at the simple task of getting EPR data from the supply chain, which already is a lot of work, and there's a lot of resistance on that. We are not very, let's say, encouraged on the result of PPWR. Data collection, clarifying roles, DOCs, data to get information. All right. Great. Thanks for that. Let's go back to the keynote. So where are we now? What do we need to do? What has to be done? What is different? What does it actually mean, PPWR? Well, the packaging that is placed on the market needs to be recyclable. That's for sure. And there are several ways to determine that. And we have, taken that into consideration in our solution, obviously. It begins with right materials that need to be used. If you have wrong materials, then you cannot recycle it. So you need to know what kind of materials have been used. Some companies are going so far to say, well, I want to simplify first. I'm going to make my own packaging designs. I'm going to prescribe how my packaging design has to be. For retail and trade, in many cases, we buy the product with the packaging that is available. And I looked at your Mentimeter. There's a little of, concern about the resistance in the market. But we have to understand that the other side of the supply chain has everything to lose as well. There are packaging manufacturers that are very well aware of PPWR, and there are very innovative product manufacturers that are aware as well. So somewhere in the coming, let's say, year, you both will meet, but you need to meet at a system that can hold the data and can get the information. And that's what Project P comes there. So we already have been looking at the right substances that have to be used. Avoidance of heavy metals in packaging materials was always there, but now you need to look at a much broader scope. You need to consider what kind of ink has been used, what glue has been used. Has there been glue? Do we need glue? Is there coating being used? PFAS, So the whole REACH agenda with all kind of regulated substances goes for packaging. You can really say packaging is a product. And we call that there the substances of concern. These are not identified per se from Brussels. You need to see if there's any substance of concern that is there, and you need to avoid them. You need to minimize the empty space. You need to introduce a minimum threshold of recycled content and prove it. And you need to keep track of it all in a technical file. Finally, draw up a declaration of conformity to confirm the assumption of compliance. Now, these bullets that I have there are not there from day one, but they are there in the coming years to come. But if you lack structure, and if you don't know who can collaborate, then you really need to focus on that. Yeah. How would you like this to happen? How would you like this to come true? Well, preferable, you want to use the same flow as you use for product compliance. And what we see is you want to place the work of collecting evidence at the manufacturer side. That ensures scale of operation. If you have it at your end, you have it for every order. If you have it at the end of the manufacturer, they have it for everything they do. They have it at the cost of everything they do. They have to make the decisions on variations of suppliers. They need to simplify at their end as well. So, especially for large enterprises, we are always encouraging to place the evidence creation at the manufacturer side. We call that file request. You need to start to move the change into the market. We have verify smart forms. We already have them for years, and we have created a very extensive one for proper risk assessment. And it collects a level of EPR data in one go. So what you want is one moment of touching a supplier, one part of collecting. And is there something to improve? There will always be something to improve because there always will be new guidance coming from Brussels. This is our task to implement it. Yeah. Lastly, this will go beyond your first tier, and you need to rely on Pro2P for onboarding not only your team and your suppliers, but also their suppliers. We do that via one-to-many online trainings, as well as Pro2Pedia, as well as built-in knowledge in the platform. I come to that later. We need to remember that this is not just a change, it's a exponential change because we have not just PDFs, we have data, and we have a whole new supply chain, and we need to move into a rhythm of per order or per batch, right? So this is growing in all directions, and they call that exponential. It will touch suppliers, and this is very, very relevant, that you previously have not touched, and probably you have not even a relationship with, a packaging manufacturer, somebody who's printing artwork, somebody that delivers carton or plastic, a wholesaler that offers tape, somebody that is packing actually outside the factory. You haven't dealt with these. They are far away from the order, from the price negotiation, from the audit reality. This is a whole new part of the supply chain that will come into the picture of you, come also via you into the picture of us. Yeah. You are adding operational relationships. You need to manage change rather than managing packaging. And if you think about it, what elements are in packaging? Carton, labels, ink, labels, glue, tape, polybag, maybe some styrofoam, some twister. Oh, another sheet of paper to protect something, a sheet of plastic to protect something. This is not one manufacturer making all these elements. These are many, many different elements from many, many different vendors. And if you start to build compliance claims, for example, no SOCs in these packaging, or maybe a claim that 30% of the carton comes from renewable resources, you want to be sure that these claims hold on. And now that you sign a declaration of conformity and you have a technical file, the names of all these vendors will become visible to you somewhere in a bit of material. Yeah. I would say in many cases, the packaging supply chain might be even more complex than your product supply chains. As said, we are moving away in general from SKU-based to batch-based rhythm. Although for the packaging, it might be a little bit more stable than for products, but still you need to check whether or not you are on par with the changes that the PPWR is going to require. Yeah, you still have supplier onboarding, you still have evolving declarations. You probably still need to do audits and checks and verify if the statements made by the supply chain actually are true. Yeah. So very bluntly, we were collecting PDFs, and now we're going to really structured packaging information, reusable data sets, maybe even component level visibility. Um, and we need to have evidence that supports claims. Yeah. It's really, really, really a big operational volume problem. You look at the data points that you potentially have to collect. This is way over 1,000 when we start to look at data points in general. Yeah. They are not at your end. So they need to come from somewhere. And if you are stuck in a reactive mode of suppliers, that means supplier chasing. What you want to do is you want to move to a supplier base that is prepared and actually ready for you. Because any delay in these kind of information means losing access to the market, which is far more expensive than getting the right data. Yeah. It becomes a precondition of participating in the European market. You have supplier onboarding. That's not free. You need to know something about the supplier. You need to maybe have an audit and regular audits. They might be not fit for your social compliance program or your environmental program. If you have never dealt with these suppliers, who's going to manage that at your end? Yeah. You really need to consider that this problem is way beyond the packaging. It's really an operational volume problem. And then sometimes the argument is, well, we don't have the budget and we don't have the money and we don't have, but you're already spending the budget. I call it the cost of non-structure. If you have 15 minutes inefficiency today in your operation across 1,000 or 10,000 SKUs, and you're adding packaging layers and you're adding updated cycles and you're adding suppliers, you can calculate how much inefficiency there is. The thing is with product compliance, that's not really visible in terms of inefficiency, not in your face as it would be in logistics, but it's very much there. Some people are still in the chat. Yeah, chats and questions are open to participants. Yeah, possible. One could also say that the packaging and packaging waste regulation will expose operational maturity gaps. Who owns the data? Who validates it? Who updates it? It's really a maturity gap. I always say retail is a numbers game. And today, or actually August 12th, numbers really have changed. Let me quickly come back to my tomato story and what I've said in the introduction. For me, the more I look into the PPWR and looking back in my 30 years in this field, I feel this is really a landslide kind of regulation. It's really underestimated. And if you look at it, and what I hear from most of the market, it really worries me. We can also say in between the lines, maybe that's the reason why Brussels is actually creating this kind of legislation. Because legal counsels, accountants, supervisory boards, I don't see them connecting the dots. I don't see this kind of developments in annual reports. I don't see budget increases. I see the old buy for one, sell for two model still alive and kicking. But you need to understand that when market surveillance knock on your door, you need to have a packaging technical file available in 10 days. Can you, if you don't have anything, get this substantiated evidence in 10 days? Or if you cannot, does it mean that you are inviting market surveillance authorities into your house and actually you're having to show them that you don't have a process? 10 days seems a lot, but they all will come on the Friday before Easter. We call a packaging file a single topic file because it used to be part of product, but it's one of the first items that really becomes a document set by its own. So what will change? In Product IP, you will have to create separate technical files for packaging, not because we say it, but because packaging will have its own compliance evidence set. It will have its own risk assessment protocol. It will have its own supply chain partners. It has its own declaration of conformity. That means that you will, in the future, in the nearby future, will not have the Q&A part for packaging as part of the technical file for a product, but you need to create a file for packaging separately. You can connect a packaging technical file to a product technical file via our bill of material. It's optional in that sense. You can do it if you want to be able to see the relationship between which packaging is used for which article. Yeah. What have we built for you? It's not entirely new in the sense that we have continued to be building operational infrastructure for you exactly in this direction already. But what have we built for you for PPWR? I think we have created something that ensures scalable supplier onboarding. We're already doing that momentarily. There's a lot of online trainings available in English and Chinese. There's a lot of information available on YouTube and other video platforms. There's a huge amount of content available on Productopedia. There's sessions like this. Yeah, we offer structured risk assessments via Verifier already. We monitor workflows. We ensure that you can start to reuse compliance data in the future and that you can emphasize on supplier engagement. Yeah. So what have we built for you operational wise? I think the core of what we have created is a very, very extensive verifier risk assessment form. You can handle even the most complex packaging if you're a little bit trained in this form in up to 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Yes, 30 minutes. It's a proper risk assessment for a technical file. That's why a manufacturer should do it, because they need to do that risk assessment for packaging for everything they produce, and not you for every order that you ship. This form comes with guidance and instructions built in. You can open it on your desktop if you want to do it yourself, or if you are the manufacturer that want to prepare for the customer already. So it is possible to do the risk assessment all by yourself. But more importantly, you can assign that task to your supplier or them to their vendor via an email. When it's ready, the PDF and the data layer returns to the technical file magically, and it can be reused. Verifier smart forms is not new for us. We've been running it for years. It's very stable. They work across all kinds of platforms, and they also work in China. I think one of the most relevant parts in this is guidance, because we love you, but we don't want your questions. We want you to be able to handle the questions all by yourself, 24/7, 365 days a year. So we offer guidance for your team, your suppliers team, and their vendors via Productopedia. We have compliance resources by Productopedia, but also by third-party experts. We have now step-by-step guidance available for the packaging and packaging waste regulation. I put the link in the presentation, but you can actually find it on Productopedia page yourself as well. It has an intro and it has 11 chapters. 11 chapters. It's a 45-minute read. A 45-minute read, and you be up to speed on PPWR. Read it again, and you become almost an expert. That's where you should start. Read that material. You have a lot of questions asked to me via the email, but most of them are answered there already. We offer video guidance on how to use Productopedia. We create video guidance on how to use that form as well. There's direct links and guidance on every page in Productopedia. Make a screenshot of the right top corner of the platform, what you see when you log in. There's help for the page. There's a direct link to Productopedia. And you see the bullhorn sign with a 1. There's latest information on updates since the last time you logged in. So there's information in Productopedia. We have regular online training and events like this one. And we have always said that if you use Productopedia, you not only get a fantastic toolkit for yourself, but you are actually giving a fantastic toolkit to your suppliers. And if you are a professional or enterprise user and you use file request, your supplier can actually collaborate with their vendors using document request. So you do yourself a favor with a fantastic toolkit, but you're also offering a fantastic toolkit to those that you are working with. If they say, I don't understand this, you have an argument against them. Said, listen, I give you all the means, you better get onto it. What does it mean for small and medium-sized enterprises using our current essential and advanced tier? Well, in general, you just make a technical file for packaging, and you can collaborate within Project P via document request. Some of the advanced users have actually a right to use some additional functions that they have earned by being a VIP or a very early customer with us. But in general, essential and advanced customers collaborate via document requests with suppliers. That means suppliers get an invite to upload evidence into your technical file. You need to review it using our Match It tool. You need to sign off the requirement list. And besides the evidence, your supplier can also get an email from you, from Project P, to do the verified risk assessment form. That is the collaboration with first tier. This is for essential and advanced customers. If you are on the other side of the supply chain, you can start and share when needed. So you don't need to wait for an invite. There's many of you that actually create files, and the moment a request comes from the customer, use the file that there is to answer that that document request or file request, or actually say, you don't need to send me a request. I'm ready for product IP. Yeah. So if you are a factory or you are an importer, why not start making technical files before your customer asks it? Professional and enterprise tier. Well, for this, we aim at reduce the workload at scale. So although document request is available, we really emphasize on starting to collaborate with suppliers via file request. File request means that the supplier at their end actually makes the file, collects information, uploads it, checks it with Match It, does the verified risk assessment at their end. When they are done, send the file back for review to you. Reviewing the effort of a supplier is 10 to 20% of the effort of making a technical file based on information by the supplier. It's very simple. That supplier is making power banks 24/7 or TVs 24/7 or refrigerators 24/7 or teddy bears 24/7. They are knowing what they do because they do it every time. There was a reason why you outsource production. If you want to make files on your end, you need to have the expertise of your entire supply chain, which is, in my opinion, the wrong end of the stick. What's even better is that when your supplier has got the file request and opens the file, you have enabled them to actually send a document request to their vendor. So this is what I meant with getting the toolkit out there in the market. Yeah. So you enabling supply chain efficiency and accountability even beyond your first tier. Yeah, there's much more to Product IP tool than what you see at first sight. Remember, you also need packaging files for private label packaging from EU suppliers. So imagine that your EU supplier is here in the middle and they need to collaborate with their factory somewhere on the planet. Using a file request is actually a very, very powerful collaboration model. Yeah, because you empower them to efficiently start to collaborate via document requests with their suppliers. The reality is most of the evidence is beyond first tier in the market. We have done this since 2009. So we have always said we need to empower small and medium-sized enterprises. They are the vital backbone of the supply chain. You need to be able to collaborate. They need to have access to all the tools that the large retail chains need. So we offer them a pay-as-you-go pricing model, the essential, or if they do a little bit more, the advanced, so they can start immediately. For larger companies, we enable fast, low-effort implementation at enterprise scale. Yeah, we focus on efficient collaboration. We focus on full accountability beyond the first tier. We are software as a service. We are knowledge as a service. And I think even more important in this aspect, we are supply chain training as a service. And all this without you having a need to invest in a product compliance management software or an expert team monitoring Brussels. We are already doing that. Yeah. So you need to focus on what you do best, managing performance of the supply chain and not managing compliance artwork. What's in our scope today? Some of you have already the right to access the beta version of what we have released. We have packaging in the scope, product packaging, service packaging, transport, and logistic packaging, because the PPWR is beyond the consumer packaging. So you can see that there's already various entities in our scope, even non-food, food contact based, cosmetic contact based. Some of these have, namely, very specific aspects. You can imagine that food contact related packaging is not the same as non-food related packaging. Yeah. So when you make a technical file, you look for packaging, you look for product packaging, and you select the relevant product packaging category. And then you can start to make a technical file. And inside that technical file for packaging, it looks the same as a technical file for product. And I highlight two different aspects. The first one is the verifier form. There's a technical file supporting questionnaire, as we call it today. If you do a mouse over, you actually can see what the status is, and I've blocked out the email address in this case, of those requests that you have sent out. Because you want to manage what is happening, or even better, you want to manage what is not happening yet. In Product IP, we have a log. Everything that you have done within your own team and with your suppliers is logged into the file. And this is very, very relevant. The European legislation is based on an assumption of compliance. You need to be able to demonstrate your effort. You know, we are all human. You are allowed to make a mistake, not on purpose, but when you register it and correct it, you can actually prove and demonstrate that you are in control. This is not an Excel. This is not Post-its. This is not some system where somebody can upload somewhere. This is control. The requirement list of product IP, and I highlighted one aspect, shows everything that we know today will become relevant for PPWR already. Some people say, wow, it's way too much. No, it's not. It's already there. It's just not mandatory yet. You know, it's mandatory from a certain date. But Product IP doesn't know what your agenda is. Some of our customers want to be ahead of everybody, and some are in the middle. Yeah. It's not up to us to make a decision what you want to have today. And the system is so flexible that you actually can say, in my maturity route in PPWR with the market, I actually say these and these can be said as not applicable for now, and I focus on other things. But I'll bet you that there will be some that say, no, this will become my policy, and I want to know where we stand today, and I leave those requirements open. And that is how Product IP works. We are not the ones that make the policy. We assist you in driving your policy to the market. Yeah. As said, this is not just another regulatory challenge. I've used this picture before, and I want to use it again. Remember this, right? Let's assume there's a power bank with a battery. It has a USB cable. I hope you all think it's a USB-C, USB-C cable now. It has an adapter that at least should have a USB-C output, and it has packaging. Not too long ago, I would say yesterday, we call this one single technical file. I put all the aspects into this one big pile of documents, and we communicate probably with the one that assembles the power bank. But if you really, really look at it, it's no longer sustainable. These will all become single topic files, and packaging is the first one, and batteries will be the next one. But to be honest, if I would be in control at your end, I would make a separate single topic file for the cable and a single topic file for the adapter. The reality is namely that these actually all have different vendors, and different vendors with different set of documents and different risk assessments and different declaration of conformity. So packaging is just the first one that has a single topic files, and battery is probably the next one. So the whole structure that I tell you today about PPWR, you can replace PPWR with battery and waste battery regulation, or how to deal with the adapters, or how to deal with the cables. It's not different. Single topic files are simply sets of information leading to their own declaration of conformity. And yes, they can become part of a SKU that you sell, and we can link it in Product IP. But this is the reality. The new reality, more files from more vendors in a higher tempo with a data layer on top of the classic static evidence as test reports. Exponential. The $1 million question always. What does it mean for you in euros? If you are an essential advanced, it's just another technical file for packaging. So it's just the 2 credits for the first one and 1 credit for the next one. You have to access the verified risk assessment form that you can fill out yourself or send it to your supplier. It's there, it's part of the file. Can still collaborate with the supplier in document request mode. Payment is the same as if you create a file for a product. So it doesn't really mean anything additional in the subscription way, or do I need to have an activation for a module? No, it's just part of what you have been doing today, but packaging has become a product. For professional and enterprise, it's a little bit of a different game. You still need to make a technical file for packaging, like everybody else. If you want to have the PPWR risk assessment form as part of your files, you need to pay a monthly fee on top of your flat rate. The reason for this is very simple. We have cost of teaching your supply chain with dealing with PPWR verified risk assessment form. You probably want to have a interface from the data that you collect in your account back to your ERP and PIM system. So there's a different kind of IT collaboration layer. And I think this justifies the additional monthly fee. And of course, you can fill out the verified risk assessment form or delegate it to your supplier. You can collaborate with supplier in document request mode or file request mode, just as before. And as said, this file request mode enables your supplier to collaborate with their vendors using ProTP as well. That's what I meant. We are not only training your first tier, we're going to train your first tier and their first tier, your second tier, and even maybe beyond. We already see it. The rate in which people signing up for online training is really exploding. Payment is the same as if you would create a file for a product. It just counts within the flat rate agreement. And we have a fair use policy of 1,000 technical files or supplier profiles a month. And we calculate an average 3-month period. Over that, €5 per unit over threshold. If you have a different kind of pricing agreement, that's very, very possible. And then you are most likely in an enterprise contract. Do I need to pay? Yeah. Because it's work. It's work for us, and it's work that we get from you in a collaboration. It's a very, very big job to do. Yeah. I think for enterprise customers, the fact that we are now going to collect EPR data in the same run that you are doing a risk assessment of the packaging is actually a reduction of the contact points that you have in the supply chain. I think you should see efficiency coming here. Yeah. What is the timeline? Well, we are starting testing packaging files already with some of the customers. We have done tests with verified forms. We are trying to do some tests at scale with some of the customers. And within some aspects, perhaps days or weeks, we're going to disable the Q&A, the question and answer on packaging as part of making of a product file. So then those that are in essential and advanced will see that first. They make a file and they suddenly can make a file for packaging. The large customers, we will contact them and say, what do you want to do? Do you want us to activate the module or not? Somewhere in the next weeks, we will release various different functionalities. We will release new products. So updates will follow each other relatively fast in the coming weeks. My advice is keep track of changes. I will share the link later. You need to best is download the ProTP smartphone app today, and then you are up to date. You don't basically need to do anything except following us. There were various questions sent to me as part of the invite. A full FAQ and detailed answers will be in the handout, but let me focus on 3. As a current user, do I need to do something today? No. Essential advanced users will automatically move to making packaging files once we flip the switch, and enterprise professional users will be contacted and we'll ask them, do you want the PPWR module to be added to your account? Do you want to have it live? Yes or no? Some of you already have been contacted and you have existing agreements. Okay. So basically, the initiative is at us and essential advanced users. You will actually read the news. For large enterprise companies, we have got the questions, how does Product P work with existing ERP PIM systems? We sit in between your commercial systems, your data management, your PIM, and your suppliers. So we often use CSV import-export. It doesn't need to be 24/7 live connected. It's okay to have a lag time between getting data and activating data. CSV import-export works very, very well. We can offer workflow status feedback. We have reorder expiry dates. We can find out document sets. It can all flow back into your system. So these IT integrations never have been proven to be a real hassle. If you are a large customer, professional enterprise, and you want to start working with us, you could even start working with us on packaging files only. The connection between us and your existing IT system is never the blocking issue for starting. Most likely, the starting blockades are, do you know who to invite to start to collaborate with Product IP? Do you have the email addresses? Can you inform them that there will be a new workflow? Yeah. Obviously, as PPWR has the compliance aspect of the packaging and has the recycling aspect, the questions are, is Product IP also a partner for EPR? No, we are not. Not in the sense that we do reporting for EPR, not in the sense that we are collecting or handling payments for EPR programs. We simply help you to collect EPR data in the same workflow. So you can limit the number of contact moments with your supply chain partners. Yeah. The master data of your business, the commercial data of your business, is actually never in Product IP. We use your order or your user order to feed Product IP your account and start to collect relevant information. And then when the product is released to the market, you need that data again in your systems. All right. I think this is the really, really important tip, because besides this change, you will see parallel changes happening on battery, on EUDR. Yes, EUDR. We are developing new functionalities around bill of material. Things go very, very fast at the moment. So I want you to really participate in this journey and download the Product P smartphone app, because via that smartphone app, you will have access to Product IPedia on the go. You will get the latest news for events, you get the updates, you get regulatory information. If you want them as well as or only in your email, go to connect@productp.com and ensure that you have the right boxes ticked. I think when you look at PPWR, you can see that it's not longer a side process. It's really becoming a supply chain infrastructure. I think EUDR is even a step further. If you have products that are related to EUDR, if you don't have a number, you cannot even import. So there you can see that the whole compliance is not something that you can ignore or do in parallel. It's really becoming part of your supply chain infrastructure. It becomes a condition for doing business. And I think that is the big message that you should land somewhere in your organization as well. This is not something that we can just do a little bit. It's essential to survive. Yeah? And as I said before, if every component is a supply chain relationship, that means also that the whole scope of everything that is in the picture of your company extends as well, which could be having consequences on completely other fields. Because most of the large companies, maybe you are an SME, but your customer is very large. Large companies have or have to mandatory develop policies around supply chain due diligence on carbon footprints. Yeah? they need to report, they need to make promises in their annual reports. Accountants need to sign these off, and they need to keep up the promises. But I doubt that in those plans, they have taken into consideration that the supply chain relationships that they have to manage is actually a multiple of the first year that they had into the picture 2-3 years ago. So refers that to another question. What if you have child labor in a polybag production? That's like a 0.002 part in your packaging. Can that prevent market access? I think we never had asked that question before, but this is the level of questions that you need to introduce in your organization, because that really could become a reality. So in the weakest link is maybe somewhere in your supply chain, not your first tier supplier, but somewhere deeper. In discussions that I have, people say, well, PPWR doesn't mention anything about supply chain. I don't think that's correct. You don't need to write it down in PPWR. It's written down in CSRD and CSRDDD, whatever. Lieferkettensorgfaltijkheidsgesetz, LFSK, what the Germans call. If it's your technical file and it's your declaration of conformity, and if it's the promises on recyclability of material or the content of recycled material used, then it's your supply chain. Yeah, and these statements need to be true and need to be substantiated. You need to do something with that. So what we often say, it's not about collecting PDFs. It's actually asking the right questions and having opinion about answers that you don't get or never come back. That is really what about product compliance. And with packaging, you will ask more and more questions to more and more suppliers. So you need to have more opinions. And that's where we help. Silence in the market is also relevant. Yeah. That was the 1 hour on packaging and packaging waste. 10 work days. Yes, 10 work days. Will non-EU suppliers also be affected? All of these monstrous regulations always seem to harm European manufacturers and suppliers most. Somebody is asking that. I'm not really sure what the background of that question is, because non-EU suppliers to whom? To the market? Packaging and packaging waste regulation data will flow into digital product passport, will flow into a mandatory set of information that needs to be shared with EU custom programs in a year and a half from now. Drop shippers first. So if the question is, do we face competition, unfair competition from drop shippers on this agenda point as well? I would say in general, the measures from Brussels are the same for packaging and packaging waste as for product compliance. Yeah? So it will become part of the same data set. If you are importer from a non-EU brand, then you as an importer need to have the technical file on hand, just like the product. It's not different. It's not so different than yesterday. It's just now that somebody need to sign for it. It seems to become very much more in your face. So I hope that answered the question. I have no more questions here. If so, then I close this session. Thank you all for being with me, and it's been recorded, will be shared. The handout and the Mentimeter results will be coming. I will make them available for download later today already. I'll give you a WeTransfer link for that, okay? And then we'll put them somewhere later, probably on Product.pedia available. Violin. Do we need REACH for all products? Yeah, exactly. But REACH already have said, in the REACH legislation, it already had said packaging is a product. So REACH is applicable for packaging as well. Correct. No substances of very high concern in packaging. The thing with the substances of concern not a substance of very high concern, is you should not add substances to packaging that minimize the recyclability of the packaging, which is a different kind of risk. It's a concern of you are affecting recyclability of packaging material at scale. Yeah. So the other question is about products. Do we need REACH report for all products? Well, you need to have REACH evidence for all products, but that's same. Where can we find the Verify Smart Forms? The Verify Smart Forms will be part of the requirement list. It's actually part of the FAQ. It will show up in the requirement list. There's verifier forms already for risk assessments if you have made use of Product IP before. So verifier is not new. And the verifier form for packaging and packaging waste regulation will be there as soon as the single topic file for packaging will be live. We purchase raw materials for packaging and then use them for our product. We produce packaging specifically for a product from raw material. Single serial number should be sufficient. Now, that's a good question. These are typical things that the Union still need to make some guides. I would say in that case, you would make a technical file displaying or showing that any packaging that you make in this way actually fulfills the essential requirements of the packaging and packaging waste regulation. That is what you can do. And if you have the raw materials, then that's already the basis. If the raw material doesn't have any substance of concern or substances of very high concern, it's basically suitable for recycling, then there is your proof, Have to remember that product IP by itself is not a legal counsel. So in any case, we follow what Brussels has offered us as guidelines. And ultimately, the court in Brussels is the one that decides if something has to become true or not. But there are many legal counsels that are available if you want to have some very, very detailed questions and answers. All right. Can we have packaging tested for substance of concern? Okay, I see now that many of the questions are coming that actually are answered in the FAQ. So I want to prevent we going into too much detail. The FAQ will highlight most of your questions as well as the Productpedia articles that are available. Yeah. Do some reading there and you will find the truth. Thank you all for being here with us today. I wish you good luck with the PPWR implementation, and we're looking forward to see the first technical files on packaging used in your accounts very, very soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.